Thank you, Devonne, for joining us again today. The last time we spoke, you shared a lot about your story, the island of Tobago, your migration, your return migration, and you noticed some signs and symptoms in your youngest child that someone else also noticed and prompted you to see if the child had autism or ASD, autism spectrum disorder. Can you tell us more about what some of the things that you noticed?
Well, it's definitely something that I think I guess you think if it's something like autism, it always stays the same. And I heard someone who is autistic, he said, once you've met one autistic, that's all. You've met one autistic. It's not the same. You can't just say everybody who lines cars up is autistic, right? My son is verbal, but he is way more physically expressive. So you would change the channel on the television, and instead of really telling you, like, I don't like that, or could you change it back, when he's quite capable of saying that, it's like, it's like a grunt or like a push. It wouldn't be like, could you, and that to me is probably the crux of it, especially as a Caribbean person, is that it comes across so rude, right? We say, or to Jamaicans we say feisty, it comes across as though it's something in the manners realm, when that is just the form of communication. And one of the things that my husband recognized early, he was like, do you realize that he likes the cartoons where there's no speaking, there's no dialogue? It's always grunting, or, there's a whole lot of these cartoons that he loves that have no speaking in it at all. And I never noticed it, because the older one, all his cartoons are like these plots and these, a lot of dialogue in it. But he likes the things where people are grunting, or, there's no words at all. So that was definitely one of them. And then the other one, which I know his grandparents are like, why you tell people that, right? He loves to be naked. He loves to be naked. As soon as he gets into the house, he takes off all his clothes. As soon as the car pulls into the driveway of home, he takes off all his clothes. He just loves to be naked. And so that is definitely something we've had to transition with, because in the Caribbean, a naked child is not it's normal, right? But in America, it's so like, call child services, there's a naked child on the loose, so he can't. And he's a nature boy. He loves to feel grass in his toes and water. And so it's hard for him to be cooped up inside when, this is him naturally. He wants to be outside and he wants to be naked, and we can't really allow for that, So it is those types of things. And then he has a different concept of pain. It just doesn't, in the Caribbean, we would hit children, right? But he doesn't understand that. He's just like, he would laugh when it's not, his emotional cues definitely you would see are different from obviously the other child who would be like, what, why you, but he would more be like, like you would see a confused look on his face if you threaten to hit him, or if you hit him, he doesn't get it. So, it's definitely been such a learning curve for myself, my husband, even his brother, because his brother is a strong advocate for him, like, don't do this, or don't, always talking up on his behalf. And, it's a really, unique for us situation. And then, of course, as a parent, I went through the gamut of emotions. It's like, oh God, well, I'm going to talk in local vernacular. Oh God, Devonne gonna make this artistic picnic, so, which is like Devonne made this child who's autistic, right? So, there's a lot of feeling like, what did I eat? Did I eat something during my pregnancy? Did I not warm him up enough when he was in those first few days of birth? Like so many things. Did I have them too close together? So many questions. So, it's been a process.
Some of the things that you are noticing in your son really have to do with kind of rigidity of interests, but also difficulty with transitions. So he is expressing his difficulty with you changing the television channel. And unless a person outside of him is empathetic and understands what's going on, they may misinterpret and may project onto him something that is just not true, something from their day-to-day lives that he is not even thinking or believing or can relate to. So that's something that's really important, you know. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is this: the nudity, the nakedness may be a response to sensory issues. So sometimes these children, adolescents, young adults may be more sensitive to certain things. It might be to a texture, it might be to a smell, it might be to a sound. And so you might see individuals doing this to dampen the sound. They may not want to have certain things on their physical body. And that may be, depending on the severity of the developmental issue, that may be very distressing to the child. So we have to operate from a space of empathy, and really kind of positioning ourselves, being curious. What is really going on here? Is it just about what I am thinking, or is there something else that's going on? And, you know, moms, generally speaking, do the best that they can. I really believe this in my heart. And so being in a situation or a culture where there is even the slightest blame that's assigned is really hurtful. I would like to ask you to stop doing that. It's not nice, and it is not kind. And we're not moving forward and supporting each other when we're doing that. One of the things that I have learned in medicine is that we have very little control over very many things, and we're much more fortunate than we realize a lot of the time. You're not really guaranteed anything in this life. You're not guaranteed that, and so that is really the position that I'm operating from now, as I have matured in my identity as a medical doctor. And so I just want to encourage you and other people who are listening in that way. So you started to identify some of these issues, and there was a suspicion of autism in Tobago, but it wasn't a definitive diagnosis. How did you navigate that suspicion of autism in Tobago? Did you try to meet with individuals, or did you decide, because of the first experience I had with my son, let me try to find a facility maybe in the United States that could do a rigorous evaluation?
I'm going to be very honest. I hid because I guess some would accuse me of gentle parenting, right? And I think I had to become this person because when you really think about it, in terms of raising children, Caribbean culture could be a little aggressive because of this strict need for children to be in this very, almost be seen and not heard, manners made get man type of thing. And I didn't want to be out and about. I mean, I'm thankful that the pandemic was going on because I too am reconciling with whatever I think are my suspicions, and it's so funny. Literally the last week before I left Tobago, I saw a mother who is somebody I grew up with, and she's actually a big advocate for autism. I think it's Autism Speaks Tobago is the name of the organization. Her son is autistic, but her son is much older. And she was saying that she was at the grocery store and a guy was like, you're not listening to your mother, and of course, admonishing the child. And she turned to him and said, he does not understand he doesn't understand why or what you are thinking of correcting him. It's not going to land the way you think it's going to land. You need to kind of stop, right? And I was like, I can't imagine, being out and about and every time having to basically educate and re-educate people about what is happening with him right now. And so I literally hid. I was great and thankful for the fact that, one, we were at my parents' house, so I had a lot of support in that way. But, even them at first were kind of like, this is bad behavior. This is unmannerliness. This is, the reason for licks. This is, but as, we all kind of grew in our suspicion, and then some of the things he's kind of grown out of, right? And then some of it, it's like it's gotten deeper, right? The nakedness has gotten deeper, but maybe they're lining up with the toys, less so, So I reached out. I would only really talk to medical professionals about whatever was happening within pediatricians and stuff like that. And one pediatrician did say, when you get to the US, in Florida in particular, there is really a lack of pediatric specialty persons in autism. So, they were like, you need to get on the phone with these people now because it's going to be hard. But obviously, America is a place that runs on insurance. So it's, I had to kind of figure out how to get his insurance up to date to even be able to be allowed access to any kind of doctor or any kind of, thing like that. So as soon as I came up, it was to update all records and update everything in order to get that access. And thankfully, I met a beautiful woman here who also has an autistic child, but she knows exactly what you need to do from the Florida perspective to get your child access to all the things that you need to get. But I think definitely hiding and shame and instead of being more vociferous. And I was actually really grateful for this opportunity because it's the first time I'm really speaking about it and saying it out loud. Because, and I talked to my husband and my parents a lot about it. I was like, I'm going to say it for the first time and, talk about it and talk about how I felt and, how I feel it's affected him and, finding the right pediatrician, because of course, even being able to advocate on the child's behalf is like a whole thing in and of itself, because you may tell a pediatrician, this is what I'm noticing. And they're like, well, that's just kids. Or same, that's just, you're not saying anything there that's definitive of autism, or how could you diagnose this as autism when you're not a doctor? So all of those different things and the different questions you need to be asking. And I'm really finding my voice as a parent of an autistic child, I think, being here, versus being in Tobago. And not because again, it's not because that they don't have any services. They have. It's just that I may have been too scared, too ashamed to reach out, to kind of find out about it.
And that's a very real response. Very, very real response, because all parents imagine something about their children, who their children are going to be now and what their children are going to become. And so any kind of diagnosis, whether it's a developmental issue or a medical concern or a mental health issue, really causes you to face some of the ways that you might have idealized certain outcomes for your child. And it's a little bit of, I would say, a grief process, because you have to put away what you thought would be the best or what you thought your child would be able to do, and then start to really accept who it is that you have in front of you, like the gift that you have really. And how that gift may really positively impact the entire family. And so I appreciate you saying that and sharing those words. So Devonne, I just want to thank you for sharing your story for the first time openly. I know that it's going to benefit others. I'm really glad that you are advocating for your child. It's going to make a huge difference in his life. And I can't wait to see what happens. Thank you.
Hey family, if you're finding value in our content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us reach more Caribbean immigrants who need guidance, encouragement, and a safe space to talk about mental health. Let's build this community together, because our well-being matters. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. One love.